The morning sun cast a soft golden glow over the immaculate rows of white marble as Sergeant Daniel Hayes completed his final inspection of the line. The rhythmic sound of his boots echoed across the silent ground like a heartbeat, each step measured, precise, and unwavering. Daniel had stood guard for years at the sacred resting place, never once breaking discipline, never once allowing his duty to falter. But today was different. Today, as the wind whispered through the trees, his heart carried a weight heavier than his perfectly pressed uniform. His only son, Andrew, was graduating high school, a moment he had dreamed of witnessing since the boy took his first steps. But orders were orders. When the time came, Daniel had requested leave to attend the ceremony. His request was denied. The weight of his service demanded presence where he stood, not where his heart longed to be. Still, he clung to hope, convincing himself that perhaps, at the last minute, they might allow him to leave for just an hour. But the answer remained the same: no exceptions. He looked down at his polished rifle, feeling the sting behind his stern expression, knowing that his duty would cost him one of the most important days of his life. Back at the crowded high school auditorium, the sound of cheers filled the air as parents, friends, and proud families gathered to celebrate their graduates. Banners fluttered, cameras flashed, and laughter rang through the halls. Andrew sat quietly in his row, his black gown neatly pressed, his cap tilted slightly forward. He should have been excited. This was his day, but an emptiness lingered like a shadow in his chest. He had always imagined seeing his father in the stands, standing tall in uniform, clapping proudly as his name was called. But Andrew had grown up understanding sacrifice. His father wasn't just a soldier, he was one of the elite guards of the most sacred grounds in the nation, a man whose duty was larger than personal moments. Still, the ache in his chest wouldn't go away. "Is your dad here?" a classmate whispered. Andrew shook his head, forcing a half smile, pretending it didn't matter. But deep down, it mattered more than anything. At the edge of the field, 5 Marines sat silently, their posture stiff, their faces unreadable. They had arrived early, unnoticed by most. They weren't there for a random graduation, they were there for him, for the boy whose father stood where no ordinary man would. Back at the tomb, Daniel's eyes flickered toward the horizon. He imagined the stage, the banners, the moment when his son's name would echo through the loudspeaker. A lump formed in his throat. A fellow guard approached him silently, handing over a folded message. Daniel opened it with trembling hands, hoping for a miracle, but instead, the words struck like cold steel: "You are relieved not for personal leave. Remain at post." No fatherly pride, no chance to be part of his son's biggest moment. He stood straighter, fighting the crushing ache in his chest. The air around him grew heavier as he repeated silently to himself the oath he had taken years ago. Honor, duty, respect. He had taught these very words to his son. Little did he know, those words would soon echo louder than he ever imagined. At that same moment, at the graduation grounds, Andrew's name was about to be called. He straightened in his seat, swallowing hard, the emptiness expanding in his chest like a storm cloud. The principal's voice carried over the speakers: "Andrew Hayes." The crowd erupted into applause, but Andrew's ears rang in silence. He walked toward the stage, trying to keep his smile steady, hiding the sting of disappointment that burned behind his eyes. His gaze swept across the crowd one last time, hoping for an impossible miracle. But there was no uniform, no proud father. Then, just as he reached the stairs, a movement at the far end caught the corner of his eye. 5 Marines stood in unison. Their boots struck the floor with a solid, commanding sound that sliced through the noise of the crowd. Heads turned, conversations paused. A ripple of confusion spread as the 5 men marched forward with absolute precision, their faces as solemn as stone. They reached the front row just as Andrew stepped on stage. One of them raised his hand in a sharp, perfect salute. Then the others followed, their movements synchronized, as if rehearsed for a moment that had never been spoken out loud but felt destined to happen. The auditorium fell silent, not out of confusion, but reverence. Andrew froze, his breath catching in his chest. He didn't need anyone to explain. He recognized that salute, not to him, but for him. It was the salute his father would have given if he were there. A lump swelled in his throat as tears burned his eyes. Behind the Marines, someone quietly placed a folded note on the front chair. It was a message from the guards at the tomb, a simple line written in Daniel's unmistakable handwriting: "Where I stand for all of us. But today, they stand for me, for you. I am so proud of you, son." A wave of emotion crashed over the audience. Parents wiped their eyes. Teachers stood still. Even the principal's voice wavered as he handed Andrew his diploma. In that single moment, the absence of one man was replaced by the presence of 5 who carried the same honor, the same discipline, the same silent promise. Miles away, Daniel stood at his post, his heart beating steady, a tear hidden behind the discipline of a soldier's face. He knew his son had seen their silent message. He knew Andrew would understand. That night, long after the ceremony ended, a folded diploma rested against the folded note, both symbols of duty, love, and an unbreakable bond between father and son.